Right, so you can see now this equation, this first equation of a parabola, is in a different format to the previous ones that we had been discussing. When you see an equation like this, you can already see a few things. First of all, it's a positive x squared, which means we know the parabola is going to be concave up. Okay, and so let's go and talk about, let's go and find out the most important things that you need to know to sketch a parabola. First of all, let's find the x-intercept. Okay, what we're going to do here, we're going to let y is equal to 0. So you're going to get 0 is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 8. Now you have a quadratic equation. So now we know that it cuts the x-axis at minus 4 and 2. This is very important. So you can't look at this equation like we did before and just sketch the parabola. You need to find these important points. So that's the x-intercept. Let's now find the y-intercept by letting x is equal to 0. And so now we have y is equal to 0 plus 0 minus 8. And so y is equal to minus 8. So now we have our x-intercepts and we have our y-intercept. Okay. All right. Next, we should find the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry, the easiest way to find the axis of symmetry, if you have the x-intercepts, is to find the average of the two. So minus 4 plus 2 divided by 2, which is minus 2 on 2, which is minus 1. Be careful. You can't just say minus 1. The axis of symmetry is a vertical line, and if it's a vertical line, it has an equation. X is equal to minus 1. That's your axis of symmetry. Let's go ahead and sketch the parabola with that information. Okay, that's enough information to be able to sketch the parabola. So we already know that it cuts minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and minus 4. It already cuts the x-axis at minus 4 and at 1, 2. So it cuts the x-axis there and there. And it cuts the y-axis at minus 8. And it's a positive parabola. So the only thing that it can really do is come down and go back up. Most people make the mistake when they're sketching, they put in the y-intercept, and then when they go to sketch the parabola, they get tempted to put the vertex where the y-intercept is, which is incorrect. Okay, the y-intercept has got nothing to do with the vertex of the parabola. So what I always recommend you do is you look at the parabola like this, you look at the x-intercepts like this, and you sketch the parabola freely, like so. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to come down, we're going to go back up. That's what the parabola looks like. So now you can see by doing that, the vertex is over here. Okay. Let's label our x-intercepts, which were minus 4 and 2. Minus 4 and 2. Our y-intercept is minus 8. So now you can see our vertex, which is over here, should have a y value less than that y-intercept. Okay. Our axis of symmetry is x is equal to minus 1. In other words, it's this line here. Okay, so I've got it very, very close. Now, so that should actually be in line with this. It's a little bit off. Now, I want you to think, if I ask you to sketch this parabola, to plot this parabola, and I said to you, for example, this is x is equal to 3. And I want you to find, so we know that this point here on the parabola has an x value of 3. If I ask you to find the y value, you would sub in x is equal to 3 into the equation of the parabola. So y is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 8. You would sub in 3 into x, and you would get 9 plus 6 minus 8, which is 15 minus 8, which is 7. So now I know that the y value there is 7. So this point here is 3, 7. For example, when you're finding the vertex, it's exactly the same, okay? You know that the x value of the vertex is minus 1. Now you need to find the y value, because your axis of symmetry passes through the vertex. So if you come across 1 unit to the left to draw your axis of symmetry, then obviously your vertex's x value must be minus 1 as well. Now what's the y value? Well, you sub that x value of minus 1 into the equation of the parabola. So write down the equation of the parabola. Now sub in minus 1. Which is minus 9. So the vertex is the point minus 1 comma minus 9. We know that's correct because remember we were saying before, we're expecting the y value of this point to be lower than the minus 8. Otherwise there's a problem. Alright guys, so that's pretty much the x-intercepts, y-intercepts, axis of symmetry, and the vertex all done. Next question. What do you do when the equation looks like this? Well, this is actually quite easy. Let's go ahead and answer all the questions. Let's find the x-intercepts. So let y is equal to 0. So 0 is equal to x minus 3 minus x minus 5. This is wonderful because it's already been factorized for us, right? Don't expand it, please. And you get x minus 3 is 0, so x is 3. That's one x-intercept. And the other one is x is equal to 5. So that's one x-intercept and that's the other. Now we let x is equal to 0 to find the y-intercept, and you get 0 minus 3 times 0 minus 5, which is minus 3 times minus 5, which is positive 15. So there's our y-intercept. Now our axis of symmetry, we're going to add the two x values and divide by 2, which is going to be equal to 4. So x is equal to 4 is our axis of symmetry. And our vertex, we know the x value is going to be 4. To find the y value, we're going to sub that 4 back into the equation of the parabola. So if you like, the equation of the parabola is this. And now when you sub in 4, you get 4 minus 3 times 4 minus 5, which is 1 times minus 1, which is minus 1. So that's going to be your vertex. That's it. You found all the information that you need. Now let's look at sketching the parabola. So our x-intercepts are at 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our x-intercepts are going to be at 3 and at 5. So this is going to be a very narrow parabola. It's going to be a very narrow parabola. Because we're sketching, I'm allowed to do this. I'll show you. Right, I'm allowed to do this. So this is 3, this is 5. The vertex we said was 4 comma minus 1, and that is 15. Now, because we're sketching, we're allowed to do this. This is the only thing that you've got to be careful of. The marker is going to say to you, the graph's got to be roughly to scale. The marker is going to say to you, how is this distance here 1, because it's got a y value of minus 1, and then this here 15. Okay, doesn't make any sense. It's not really to scale. So what you need to do here is, when you're sketching this, you've got to make sure it's more something like this. So that point there is 4 comma minus 1. That's the x-intercept of 3. That's 5, and then that's 15. Now that's more realistic. Okay? That's more realistic. Oh. And you're done. The axis of symmetry, of course, is there, which is x is equal to 4. We knew that from the beginning. And that's your parabola sketched and done. Let's have a look at the next one. Y is equal to x squared minus 6x. Again, okay, let y is equal to 0 and solve for x. There's your x-intercept. X is equal to 0, and you get y is equal to 0. Your axis of symmetry is halfway between the two x-intercepts. So x is equal to 3. And to find your vertex, you know the x value is 3. Sub in 3 into there, and you get 9 minus 6 times 3 is 18, which is minus 9. So there's your vertex. Now, when you go to sketch the parabola, cuts at 0 and at 6. Like this. And the vertex is 3 comma minus 9. And here's your axis of symmetry, which is x is equal to 3. And you're done. Alright, what happens now? I've got another question. See how this is x squared minus 6x. The next one I've written as 6x minus x squared. So very similar question, but you can see that this is concave down. It's a negative parabola. Well, don't panic. Let's go ahead and let y is equal to 0. And you get 6x minus x squared is equal to 0. Okay, solve this equation. And you get x is 0 and 6. Let x is equal to 0, and you also get y is equal to 0. So because when x is 0, y is 0, we know it passes through the origin. Okay. Your axis of symmetry is halfway between the... So x is equal to 3. And when x is equal... And your vertex, when x is 3, what's y equal to? Well, let's have a look. 18 minus 9, which is 9. Your vertex is 3,9. Okay, so it cuts the x-axis at 0 and 6, and the y-intercept is actually through the origin. So this is all starting to make sense now. That's what it looks like. 0 and 6. Your vertex is going to be 3,9. It's an upside down parabola, and your axis of symmetry is at x is equal to 3. And you're done. Okay, what happens when the equation looks like this? This is the final question I'll be doing, okay, where it looks a little bit more complex. You know, it's a non-monic quadratic. There's a negative there. Let's go ahead and see what's going to happen. First of all, let y is equal to 0. When you have this quadratic equation, we don't like the fact that there's negatives here. We would much prefer to take everything over to the other side. So it makes it 2x squared plus 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. Now what you have is a non-monic quadratic to solve. So what I'm going to do here, let me just move all of this over to this side. We're going to use the PSF method to solve this. The product is 2, the sum is 3, so the factors are 2 and 1. If you can't remember how to solve non-monic, you can go back and look at the factorizing tutorials that I've done. But the point is that minus 1 and minus a half are the two x-intercepts. Now the y-intercept, you're going to let x is equal to 0, and you're going to get y is equal to minus 1. And now your axis of symmetry. Your axis of symmetry is halfway between the two x-intercepts. Minus 1 minus a half is minus 1 and a half. Minus 1 and a half divided by 2. is minus 3 on 4. Okay. What I might do is I might just grab this and move it down here. Make the diagram a little bit bigger. And your vertex, it's not any harder, it's just more difficult numbers. So now you're going to sub in x is equal to minus 3/4 into this equation here, into the equation of the parabola. And you're going to get your answer for y. Now sketching this parabola, the x-intercepts are minus 1 and minus 1/2. It's an upside down parabola, and the y-intercept is minus 1. The reason I'm looking at the y-intercept when I'm sketching is, see, I can cut at minus 1 and minus 1/2, and I've just got to be conscious of where it cuts the y-axis. This x-intercept can't be minus 1/2 and that be minus 1. They're too far apart. So what I'm going to have to do that makes more sense. It's a tricky one to draw because the numbers are so small. So, you know, if from there to there is 1/2 and there to there is 1/2, it's very close. And the y-intercept is at minus 1. And your axis of symmetry is at x is equal to minus 3/4. And your vertex is minus 3/4, comma, whatever your answer was for this question over whatever your calculation was over here. Alright, so that's pretty much done. So the only way they can complicate these questions is by making the numbers a bit more difficult. The only final thing I've got to say, the axis of symmetry for all of the questions that I've been doing so far, I've been finding the axis of symmetry by doing halfway between the two x-intercepts. But what happens when you get a parabola where the parabola might be up here, okay, and there is no x-intercepts? Well, the other way of finding the axis of symmetry is by following the equation x is equal to minus b on 2a. Okay, that's one method you can use to find your axis of symmetry. And the other way, sometimes you just look at the graph, okay, depending on the question. What do I mean by looking at the graph? I mean, let's go back to these beginning questions. You can see for the first one, the axis of symmetry is x is equal to 0, the y-axis, and the vertex is 0, 0. Your next one, axis of symmetry is x is equal to 0. Your vertex is 0, 2. So if someone gives you this equation and says find your axis of symmetry and find your vertex, you don't really need any working out. You can just sketch it and then write the answers. Next one, your axis of symmetry is x is equal to 0. Your vertex is 0, minus 2. Next one, just by sketching, just by looking at this equation, doing a quick sketch, you can see straight away your axis of symmetry is x is equal to 1 and your vertex is 1, 0. Next one, just by looking at this equation, quick sketch of the parabola, your axis of symmetry is x is equal to minus 2 and your vertex is minus 2, 0. Next one, your axis of symmetry is x is equal to 1 and your vertex is 1, 2. Okay, so you imagine if somebody gives you a question that says y is equal to x plus 1 all squared minus 2, and they say what's your axis of symmetry, and what's your vertex, you don't have to do a whole lot of extensive working. You can just draw your X and Y axes. Right, watch this. You can just draw your X and Y axes. Okay. You know that this is a normal parabola, move to the left 1 unit and then move down 2. So if you were to draw a normal parabola like this, move to the left 1 unit and move down 2, okay, you know that this is -1, -2, because you went this way 1 and now this way 2. Now just by looking at that, you can see your axis of symmetry is that X is equal to -1 and your vertex is -1, -2. I think you all get the idea. Guys, like any topic, practice makes perfect. I hope these videos were of great benefit to you, and I do wish you all the best. Thank you.